Us to order, and I think the first thing we have on our agenda is a roll call. What I'd like to request is that we have one new member, and I would like everyone to not only give their name in a roll call, but actually say something about themselves. Probably no more than a minute or two, but so we all get to know each other here. Anyone want to start?
Sorry, this is your. You might have to use.
Okay. My name's Jamie McKenzie. I've been a lifelong resident of Oregon City, and this is my first position with the city, so I wanted to get involved and thought this would be a good place to start.
Welcome. Thank you.
We'll just go right around.
My name is William Gifford. I guess this is my second or third year on OCCIT. I am the Secretary for the Citizen Involvement Council and Land Use Chair for the Hillendale Neighborhood Association. I'm also on the City Budget Committee and the Urban Renewal Budget Committee and some other stuff.
And I'm Betty Mumm. I'm Oregon City Commissioner, and I serve on the C4 and on South Fork Water Board.
I'm Doug Neely. I've been here less than a third of my life in Oregon City. I'm the mayor and serve on various committees and commissions.
I'm Carol Pauley, Oregon City Commissioner. I'm on the Main Street Committee and the Metro Enhancement Committee, and lots of committees now. And I've lived here for 16 years.
Anthony Moore. I've lived in Oregon City since 2004. I'm on the Metro Enhancement Committee and this committee.
Rocky Smith, Oregon City Commission President. I'm a teacher at Oregon City High School and on a bunch of committees as well. And
I'm Wendell Baskins. I'm with resident, of course, of Oregon City. I'm with the Governor's Council on Historic Trails and active in some of the historic buildings and things around town.
I'm Kathy Roth, Oregon City Commissioner, and on committees, and that's it.
We go through a period of time where we claim conflicts of interest or conflicts of interest of two kinds. One, if you actually profit monetarily from any grants that you are putting forward. Others, if you are involved in on a board or a committee or in some fashion associated with the groups that are putting forward proposals here. The second case doesn't disqualify you, but the intent is, of course, for us all to look at these unbiasedly. We've gone through a ranking system, and we'll be talking about that as the time goes. Oftentimes what we try to do at the end is to have discussions to see whether there's some basis of changing the rankings that have been put forward. But sometimes we're able to go through and look at the difference between the requested amounts and see if there's the capability of perhaps reducing some of the requests so we can include more projects. As is usually the case, the amount of money available that we have available is less than the amount that's being requested. My calculations are by about $11,245. We have $45,000 available, and their total requests are $56,245. Is there anybody else that wants to make any comments, including Michelle, regarding the process here?
No comments at this point, although I do have one clarification on your the grant request form, which is under tab, let me find the tab, 10, which lists all the grant applications and their requests plus their in-kind. I wanted to note on number 3, McLaughlin Memorial Association, if you look at 2220 and 1900, that does not total 7120. I forgot in 3,000 that should be in there as well. So that in-kind includes both cash and in-kind contributions. They're volunteer hours. So under McLaughlin Memorial, you should also note that there's $3,000 that should be included in that in-kind amount. Additionally, Just for clarification, number 7, Praxis Institute for Nonviolent Solutions. We have had applications from them before. It was brought to my attention that that might not have been noted that way in the application, but it was 2 years ago that we received an application from them. Other than that, I believe that does it. So if you, any conflicts of interest, and Doug, Mayor Neely, we also need to approve minutes.
Well, yes, I went out of order there, and since the meeting that we had a year ago is well in our mind, and we recall very well what occurred there, does anybody want to move the minutes or have any corrections?
I have a conflict, if this is the appropriate time
After
to declare.
Oh, conflict.
You admit.
Yeah.
So,
When do we do that? Now?
well, first, if we can approve the minutes and then go back to the conflicts
Okay.
and stay on the agenda order.
I have a comment about the minutes. I was racking my brain, as the mayor said, just trying to remember how long that meeting lasted, and I noticed that there's no point in on the minutes that says when it was adjourned. I'd appreciate that on the next minutes to just note a time of adjournment, please.
Okay, yes, I can do that.
Meeting adjourned, 7:57.
Where's that? Oh, on the next page.
Oh,
You're a step ahead of me.
William, I appreciate that. I'm the one that usually screws those kinds of things up. I appreciate it.
Trying to take some heat for you.
Exactly
In
right.
that case, I'd move that the minutes be approved as written.
Second.
So,
it's
motion
been-
by, oh, go ahead.
Motion by
William?
and
Gifford.
seconded by Betty Mum.
Betty Mum.
With that, do we have a vote?
Do you want to do individual or as a group?
We can just say, any
All in favor?
opposition, say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No?
Thank you.
Okay. The person that wasn't here might want to abstain.
Roberts doesn't preclude that.
No, it doesn't.
You can still vote even though you weren't at the meeting.
Yep,
Oh, does it?
yep.
Did you view the tapes? Anyway.
Yeah, okay, so then, thank you, we're on to the conflicts of interest.
Okay. I'll start. Of these proposals that are here before us, I served through this year up until just recently on the board of Main Street, Oregon City. I am on the board of the McLaughlin Memorial Association. I'm a business member of the Oregon City Chamber of Commerce, and I think that's it. Anybody else have conflicts of interest? Wendell?
Yes, I serve on the Board of Trustees of the McLaughlin Memorial Association and am a member of the Rose Farm Management Committee.
And I am the coordinator for the Pioneer Family Festival, and the Teddy Bear Parade is an event in conjunction with that event.
Any others? Mr. Gifford?
I have a couple positions with the Chamber of Commerce as an ambassador and also the chair of the Government Economic Affairs Committee. And also I am the land use chair for the Hilldale Neighborhood Association, which is applying for the movies in the park.
Well, I guess we all have it.
We all do.
All the members of the city commission have a conflict in terms of the request from Parks and Recreation because it is a department within the city. So we'll acknowledge that.
And we're all technically members of the chamber, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and the city is a member of the chamber as well. Good points. Does anybody feel that this biases them in any way on the decisions that you've made? Hearing no claims as such, I guess we can go ahead and proceed. With that, come back to my agenda, wherever I hit it. We got a funding forecast from Mr. Wimmer. He's
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and OCCIT. Speaking of times being here, this is like my 18th or something time, so this will be my last time. Hey,
Counting.
But who's counting?
I am.
How many days you got left, Wimmer?
Yeah, before, something that may affect what you're doing here tonight, Michelle has some information about one of the older grants.
Okay.
Yeah, we did have a previous grant that was, received an extension last year for $7,000. That grant will not be going forth, and so that additional $7,000 would be available to fund if you so choose during this grant cycle.
Okay.
Thank you. I had that on my list to question.
All right, very good.
So as you know, this fund is funded by the hotel motel tax, which is basically 4%. And we have one hotel motel, which is River Shore, and it produces about 47,000, 49,000 a year. Then there's another couple thousand from the Clackamas Park. So the revenue really hasn't changed much over the years. It's usually around 51 to 53,000. Nothing much either way. And this fund used to have like $77,000 back in 2007, but each year we've been consistently spending more than we've been bringing in. So now we're almost to the end of the line. So. And actually, if you did the 52,000, you could actually do all of the grants and end up with just about maybe 1,000 or 2,000 left at the end of the year. So
We tried, I think, very hard to keep within our allotted amount last time. And it's true, funds do come in through the year, but if we commit those, and you can look at it, you're putting yourself in a position you're continually rolling into the next year's funding.
Right.
That's a matter of philosophy of how you feel about that.
Had questions.
Questions?
I know that this is funded by the hotel motel. I thought that there was a trickle that came in from the from camping fees at Clackamas
RV Park?
yeah, there's about 2,000 or 3,000 of that.
Yeah,
Of the 50,000 is from the RV park.
Okay, so it's
Yeah, it's about 5% of the 52,000 is from RV park and 95% from the hotel.
We used to have, and I don't think we have any listed businesses that are
Bed and breakfast.
bed and breakfast. And we did have those several years ago, but I don't think we have any now.
Correct.
Ainsworth.
Yes.
Ainsworth House still.
Oh, that's
It
right.
used to, or is it still?
I think it's
I don't think it
still
functions as a
I
bed
don't-
and
well,
breakfast.
It used to be.
It used to
I
be,
don't
but I think
it
it's,
is
I still
now.
think it's a residence, and then they have
Yeah.
a business set on site.
Yep.
Anyway,
Okay.
that's all I have to say.
Michelle, you want to discuss the exit report template?
So last year, you had requested that there be some form, just a two-page form, condensed exit report that applicants could submit upon completing their project. And so you tasked me with going back and developing that. So that's what you have behind tab 6. So I had sent that out earlier in the year for just a review and got just one comment back. So are there any other comments, questions? Am I hitting it on the
Looked
head?
good to me.
So we can go forth and approve this for use for this next funding year.
Yes. I would say yes.
We don't need a motion for that, do we?
I don't think so. If somebody has an addition, bring that up at this point.
So
Otherwise,
basically, it would be the same
Supersede.
information. Applicants would fill this out as is, limited to this amount of space, and we'd get 3 pages and maybe some additional pictures
Comments.
and any flyers, but that would be, it wouldn't be a 20-page book for you to go through. And it would be somewhat succinct, information from grant to grant. So hearing no questions, no comments, I'll go ahead and put that in place for this year.
No, it's not too late to ask a question about anything unless it's already on the agenda for first.
No, it was back. I was looking at these budget forms that Mr. Wimmer, I assume, provided, and there was something on there about number 12 of 13.
Could you give us the tab?
Yeah, tab 5, actually, the first line.
Way
12
back,
to
way
13
back in
actual payments.
2004, or when was that? There's a,
2001, too?
it's actually there at the end of page 5.
Which one are you looking at?
Or that- Yeah, in the 2004-05 year, there was a $45,000 grant to the Regional Visitor Center at $5,000 a year. So this coming year is the 13th of that time.
So that $5,000, we get one more shot at that next year?
That 5,000 is the last. If you looked at that last year, it would have been 10,000, and each year before that would have been 5,000 more. We give them 5,000 a year.
Okay, so that's the end of that. We won't see that next year.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll go proceed and discuss our review of the grants. I believe everybody here has submitted their rankings, and Michelle has given her Excel summaries with, I believe, either the average or the totals over those summaries. And we flip to the left. Where we're going to get it? I guess we're going to go hitting our toggle to the left, correct?
Correct.
Okay, bear with me on this one because
Nancy's gone.
oh, no, I want to testify.
No signal today.
This twice a year, so remember.
Well, you're at it.
You're up there now.
Okay.
Okay.
So here are your rankings as submitted prior to the meeting, and they've been sorted out with the highest to lowest based on your input.
It's clear to me that some people are high graders and some people are not. And that's fine. That's fine. And you might recall there are many categories that we rank on. Just because a item fits in one category very high may not mean you regard it high in terms of everything. And so the intent here is to actually I presume everybody took a look at what the grant was intended to do, and when you made the ranking, you came to the conclusion that at least one of those it fit, and then based the ranking on that. All right?
Right.
We could start with a discussion, if you wish, in terms of the kinds of decisions that have been made. Does anybody have any particular comments about anything that's here?
Do you want to go grant by grant? I mean, line by line, or?
Well, we can. We can
How
start.
far
with
off are we?
You mean how much do we disagree?
No, I mean in dollar amount.
We're not. We're not that. My calculation now is $3,245.
Yeah.
We're very. I mean, we're good.
I would comment the Oregon City Parks and Recreation is equal to that. And it follows lowest on the total. I'm going to make a personal comment on this one, if I may, just to start off with, since it's on the bottom of the scale. Some years ago, not too many years ago, when we had the concerts in the park, that sought funding through, I believe, our Metro Enhancement Program. Or was it, Michelle, is that correct, or was it through the
I think
OCCIT?
it was OCCIT.
It was
for that it was,
OCCIT.
yeah.
Yes.
And for the first couple of years, I didn't have too much of a problem, but it is a city's Parks and Recreation program. And we indicated after 3 or 4 years of that we should look for other sources of funding. And the Parks and Recreation program there was very, very successful in seeking private sponsorships, and that seemed to work very well. This Movies in the Park last year, I believe, was the first year of it. They started with 2 movies. They're going up to, I believe, 4 this year. And since it is on the bottom ranking, and since it exactly within $5 fits the amount of money that we're short in funding everything. If it's all right, I would like to ask the Parks and Recreation person to come in and talk about it. Is that all right? Does anybody have any problems with that?
I would be fine with that. I didn't rank it as high myself for that same exact reason, because I didn't want to start the trend. But, I mean, I'm personally okay with if it's like a one-year thing, but I don't want to see this continue to come back like we did the concerts in the park. That was my concern. And then my other comment was, since it's a neighborhood program, is there, through the CIC, is there money allotted to different neighborhoods that could be funneled into this? And I don't have the answer, but William's here and he might know.
If I can speak to that,
Because you are the,
Secretary of the CIC.
okay.
In that capacity, I would say that the budget that has been allocated to the CIC, I think is pretty clearly intended, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, for communication. That is to fund newsletters and,
Okay.
and putting out postcards announcing meetings and so on. There really isn't anything in there for funding activities
Okay.
whatsoever. Each neighborhood does have some, some small account that they, fortunately, through the grace of the concerts in the park and the snow cones, that's about the only citywide fundraiser that the neighborhood associations have been doing.
Okay,
So I don't think there's any money in that budget for that.
okay. Thank you.
I had indicated to our city manager and asked him to speak to Scott Parker, our Director of Parks and Recreation Program. I don't think that's his actual title, but that's one of the things he does anyway, is that I ranked it on the low scale for the same reason, and that was as much, if anything, to alert him so that if they had some response, that they could speak to it.
Right.
And that go ahead, Rocky.
It's on a different topic.
Okay. I was wondering, is it okay if we have them come up? Because they're the lowest
Yeah.
on the ranking. They're
That's
the cutting
fine.
point piece. And I see Rochelle's here. Do you want to come up?
Hi, thank you.
Go. Well, the first thing, I know you had enough money to fund 2 movies last year. Do you have that money to fund 2 movies this year?
Yeah, what we did last year is we gave and take a little bit from each of the different programs. So that's how we made it work last year.
Okay. And will you be able to do 2 movies this year doing the same thing?
Yeah, and I think what we identified is that it was important enough to the community, and we heard such positive feedback that last year was sort of the pilot program, and so this year we were hoping to do 4. And so if we have to mix and match and do some juggling of the funds again, we're hoping to get 4 because it was so well received. So.
Yes, and it was a great thing. Don't get me wrong.
I have a question on how it will promote tourism. I mean, it's a neighborhood thing, but this
Yeah.
is about tourism, so maybe you could expand on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest attribute is that it just makes Oregon City desirable as far as if we have these events for people to come in. They're in the city, they're using restaurants, and then if there's something for them to do in the evening, more likely to stay, explore downtown, different things like that. So.
And how do you promote that to people who ordinarily wouldn't stay? I mean,
We have publications that we send out that promote the movies in the park. And then what I did last year is I attached it to our concert series. And so not only did we promote our concert series, which is a very highly attended event, but Movies in the Park also was part of that. And so I think it's really wide-reaching to get that out there through that, so through that publication.
Yes, Ms.
Another issue, Mr. Moore, you're right about the tourism thing, although it could be promoted to realtors, it was a long ways,
Right.
the value of the property
Right.
because you have community activities going on. But under the purpose of the OCCIT granting, number 7 says cultural activities such as lectures, concerts, art shows, and
Yeah.
educational series. So
Yeah.
in that regard, it's right on target,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't pertain directly to bringing people from outside the city in.
I agree with that. And
Yeah.
I think probably everybody made judgments based on that listing. And, of course, we get the money from tourism, and that's why we'd like to see much of that expenditure
Go
to
back into
tourism.
it,
But
yeah.
but there are other things that this fund is able to support.
Right.
Um,
So like I said, I mean, I'm okay with doing it as a pilot, but I just don't want it to continue to come back. It needs to figure out its funding.
And that's a discussion I had today with Scott Archer, is that
Okay.
last year was, can we make this work? What does the community think? This year, is it a desirable thing to have for in the month of August? And so it is to establish this program, and once we can get this established, hopefully it's something that we can keep offering every summer and not use the OCCIT
Right,
grants.
right.
So it's to help us sort of get it off the ground
Get
and
it-
established.
Give it a kickoff.
Have you considered getting business sponsors for that as well?
There's one sponsor, BCT, is one of for the evenings. My only concern with that is I don't want to deter from the concert sponsorships. And we, this year, we're at about $13,000 that I was able to solicit for this concert. And there's only so much revenue that we can get within the city, and so, and the concerts is solely off of sponsorship. So that would be the only concern there,
Right.
so.
Right.
My
yeah.
suspicion is some businesses would be
Possibly,
inclined to
yeah.
sponsor both.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, this isn't a big deal, $3,200. I mean, you could actually, despite the fact that it's coincidentally equal to our deficit, I mean, that could be split back across these other 6 applications pretty easily.
And we kind of went through that last year, and we're able to include more projects. Actually, we had a greater deficit last year than we do this
Yes.
year.
Yes.
And we were able to include more projects by asking each of these groups whether they would be willing to reduce their amount. And if people so choose, if you want to keep the lowest, and I'm just suggesting lowest one because for most people it ranked the lowest in terms of their given ranking system, and the average came out lowest, is whether it's okay to see whether we can ask the individual requesters to whether they're willing to reduce their request a bit to permit that to happen, or whether you want to simply cut the bottom piece off or not.
Well, now I have a question. Didn't we, that one grant did not go forward that we allowed?
And we still are short $3,245.
So it's about $400.
Yeah, it took the 45,000, they added 7,000.
Got it.
Yeah, so the deficit, it's not a deficit,
Well.
but the difference is still
Delta factor.
$3,245 less than we have monies available.
You could
For the total
still
request.
do that and still have a few bucks left at the end of the year. So difference between 3,000 left at the end of the year and
Yeah.
a few hundred
Yeah.
isn't too much.
Yeah, no, I don't, my hope personally is that we can, as a kind of a startup effort, to be able to include this with the
Right.
notion that the community will be able to
Right.
self-fund additional funds in the future. And I'm just suggesting, it's my personal feeling, if we have available to us the $52,000,
Right.
that we don't allocate more than that.
Okay.
And there's been a tendency in earlier years to go ahead and dip into the next year's revenues. My preference is not to do that.
No, we need to
And
pay
I
as
see
we
a lot
go.
of nods on that.
Yes.
Yes,
Pay as we go.
Rocky?
Before we start going through each individual one of the other questions that might help on this as well is, I didn't rank this individual project that high just because of probably more the tourism connection to some degree, but by far I think it's one of the best, the greatest projects on here, and it's the Singer Falls
Yeah.
project. They're asking for the largest sum of money for the project, and I think it's warranted. But one of my questions with that is it seems much more a metro enhancement project than an OCCIT project. I don't have any problem really. I don't have any problem awarding money from OCCIT, but I think that
Which one?
to the falls.
Oh, we're moving on? Okay.
But so before I knew there was that $7,000, I was kind of seeing, award the falls project at least a portion, and then definitely encourage them to do Metro Enhancement, because I think it would rank probably extremely high on the Metro Enhancement grant, but in the sense that we have a little bit more to work with, I'm just saying one of the places I think we could take a little bit from is that, just because I think they have a huge chance of getting funding at Metro Enhancement, just because of the appropriateness of the it is enhancing that area, and but maybe it's not so much of an issue anymore.
Kathy?
Well, as you were suggesting, I just did a little math here. That's, if we cut across the other 7, that would be $463 apiece to cut out of the, so it wouldn't be a huge amount of money to go ahead and fund that and just...
No, I agree with you.
$460 is a huge amount for a $2,000 grant than it is for a $20,000 grant.
Absolutely.
I'd be concerned about that.
I would, excuse me, I think Betty had something to say, too.
Well, since Rocky brought up the grant for the lighting at the falls, the foundation, I had a problem with this one just because I didn't see the tourism connection. So I thought Metro Enhancement would be a better fit for that. And I know that people from that grant were here and wanted to speak to that. I don't know if that's okay with you guys.
Oh, that'll be fine. The one thing I'm going to point out is that we're probably going to have more requests on Metro Enhancement as well. I mean, and so...
I could see that as a good fit,
yeah,
in my opinion.
I can't see it, but my guess is we're going to be having the same issues when we come to Metro Enhancement, that we will see more requests being made. We're going to hold this discussion within this group.
I think
we will ask for comments specifically from the people making requests. Not really intended to be a public forum on this, but the thing I did notice also on the Rotary Club's request, the portion that's called in kind, which includes cash contributions. In the case of the Rotary Club, it was all in kind.
Right.
I don't believe that there was any cash commitment from the Rotary Club, and it is a large piece there. And if the thought, and first of all, we're not making a decision until we talk to the groups in question.
Right.
I mean, one thought is to say, well, you could pull that amount of money, most of it at least, from one of the one that asked the most, and we could ask the OC Rotary Club about that if they would have a problem with that.
Mr. Chair.
Well,
Yes.
I have another comment. It's a concern, actually, based on previous years' take from some and give to another type of a thing. My suspicion is that most applicants for these grants go into this process not expecting the full
You would
grant.
hope so.
And consequently, it's possible, just possible, that they add a little bit more to their request in anticipation of some of the... Now, I'm not saying everybody does that. But I'm just... If I was applying for an OCCITI grant, I would certainly want to bump it up a few percentage points, expecting for some of it to be shaved off. And the precedent of granting everybody the full amount would be pretty surprising, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not going to say what various institutions do, but we're sure going to ask the OC Rotary Club if that's the desire.
Oh, they wouldn't copy
Well,
that.
a question I always have is, will the project go through? Will
Right.
it be able
Yeah,
to
that's
go
right.
through
Yeah,
if
exactly.
some is cut
Right.
off?
Yeah.
And
Right.
my inclination is always to try to spread it around because they're all worthy projects.
Right.
But would it be able to go through?
Right.
But it is hard when you see one grant taking up a bigger percentage of the money allowed than other grants.
Yeah, and
that
we
happens
have-
sometimes.
we've given a big chunk to, like we did for the museum, the Eddie portraits, they got a big chunk one year.
Well, I think you could even give even if you give $15,000 or $18,000 to the Singer Hills project, you fund everything, and they have the opportunity to ask for a few $1,000s
Right.
at Metro Enhancement.
That's true.
So,
That's
true.
I think there's an ability to do that as well.
What's the
but-
closing date on applications to Metro Enhancement?
May 4th is the application deadline.
So there's plenty of time to before.
And how many applications have we received so far?
We've not received any at this point.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, there you
there
go.
will. I know some are coming. Yeah, they'll be coming.
Yeah, some will come.
They're coming.
Might be another one.
5 o'clock on the 4th.
I mean,
So do we want to hear from Foundation?
we do.
OC?
Rotary? We can do that. I do want to make a comment that concerns me just a little bit, and that's probably it's more of a city commission issue than it is ours, and that's from Clackamas Heritage Partners, because we have listed there as activities on the wagons and so forth.
Right.
And I don't think the relation between the city and the predecessor to Clackamas Heritage Partners, or maybe it was Clackamas Heritage Partners, I guess it was the same name, is the same in nature in terms of agreements. So why I don't really have a problem in the grant itself. There are components of that the city has to be very, very involved in. And that's, I'm just expressing a concern.
Yeah, I
on my
have a
part.
question about it too, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
it doesn't really affect so much my concern about the request.
Right. I mean,
And so unless somebody else has a concern about the amount requested on that one, I don't. But I do think what is in the proposal concerns me a little bit, because the city has to be very involved in that piece.
I would agree.
yeah.
With that, would you want to hear from the Oregon City Rotary Club?
Yes.
Since you walked all the way up here, ready to talk.
Bouncing in my chair to get up here. Hi, I'm Marcia Wimmer, and I'm representing the Oregon City Rotary Club Foundation, which is the foundation side of the membership club, Rotary Club of Oregon City. Thank you, Mayor and committee, for at least considering some funding for this project. We're very excited about a continuation of a vision that we've had for enhancing the downtown area through attention at the Singer Falls location with the artwork that we completed. And thank you to Oregon City Metro Enhancement Grant for funding for that. But I'm here representing the Oregon City Rotary Club Foundation and also several parties in the neighborhood, in the community actually, that are very interested in seeing the falls be lit. You ask why this, how does this relate to tourism? And it is a big question, and we knew that probably would be asked, and it's a fair question, and with your fiduciary responsibility, one that you do need to ask. We think that it is different than the other projects that are more event-oriented, in that this is an ongoing project. It is not an event, but ties into events that are located in the downtown area. And enhancement of those events, whether it's anything that is downtown in an evening or a seasonal event, can be enhanced with the lighting. And we're looking at LED lights and keeping the cost down. But keep in mind also that this is a capital project, and our funds are not being tied up in promotion of an event, but we would tie into other events. I would also point out that in tourism, there has been precedent set by this committee that has funded non-event projects downtown, such as the elevator interpretive panels. That was not an event. That is an enhancement of downtown and a permanent display of art. The Arts Action Alliance also received some funding in 07-08 at the same time for that same project, but a different aspect of that. And the Park Place Street sign toppers is also not an event, but is a capital. And those things hopefully will draw additional tourism to this area. This is an ongoing, the lighting project is ongoing, and people are very excited once the city cleaned up the project, the landscaping around there, and really remembered that the lights were in the falls at one point in time, are very eager to see the lights come back and be in a different format than they were before, more efficient, more effective, and hopefully less available for damage or whatever might be going on in that area. As for the funding, we think that we could actually be a little short on the funding that we're asking for. In some ways, we've left a little elbow room for some of what we are doing, but in other aspects, there may be some additional costs that aren't in here. When we were looking at the funding, in hindsight, we recognized that there were some ways that we could perhaps work with the lighting that it would avert any vandalism, and that funding has not been incorporated into the proposal that you have seen. So there could be some additional funding that we would need to request, and if we needed to go back to Metro enhancement or something else in the future, we can do that as well. But we would very much appreciate consideration of full funding of the project and consideration of it also as an additional tourist attraction.
Since nobody's nailed me, I'll make a correction. I said it was $3,245. Looks like it's $4,245 difference between the requested amount and the amount available. Sorry for that mistake.
So we're short 4,000?
For the full funding, yes, $4,245. Am I correct? Okay, you're very kind to me.
It's like it's right there.
I focused on the 3250, and it sounded good to me.
But anyway, we're close.
William had a question.
William.
I had a question about the project, Marcia. When it is completed, and it will be, I'm sure, it's a two-part question. Who actually owns the lighting? Will this be a gift to the city? And if that's the case, because there's no such thing as a free lunch, who will be charged with maintenance, even though it's going to be minimal, I'm sure?
We are working with John Lewis in the planning, excuse me, the Public Works, thank you. Sorry, John. Who recognizes that once the lights are installed, that would be his department that would be responsible for maintenance of the lights.
Will that be given as a gift? I mean, there is some capital investment there, so
Well,
who's
probably.
going to own it?
It's on city. It's on the city property. It would not be the Rotary. It would be city because it's on park land. That is parks there. So it would be the city, just as the Lee Kelly artwork is now the city's.
Okay, and so once the city owns it, the city is responsible for making
Yes.
sure that the lenses are cleaned or replaced or whatever needs to be done.
Yes.
Okay.
You said that was a two-part question.
Well, that was the second part. First question was who owns it. Second was
Who's responsible?
Yeah.
Okay. The owner's responsible, and it will be the city.
Okay.
I have a question about the amount. You mentioned this is a capital project. Is this, do you have a quotation on getting the work performed, or is this an estimate?
Both. We have some quotes from, much of the work is, the electrical work will be in kind, but the main costs are in the materials itself. And we do have a quote on the materials, on the lights, but we are looking at alternatives also that may be more effective. We're looking at the difference between external, plants on planting the lights on the side to submersible lights, and we're still looking at concepts right now. But I think the lowest, we have taken a look at what we feel is probably the lowest cost for getting those lights in, and the cost may, increase after that. We don't know. We're looking at alternatives. It's just concept right now.
Okay.
There's something that occurred to me. It's basically trying to see whether we can get the funding for Oregon City and Parks and Recreation program. I've got another question for Rochelle. Does somebody else have some questions, more questions of the Rotary Club Foundation?
Oh, I guess I do have one more, but
I just have a question about, has there been a cost estimate done on operation or electrical charges for?
There has been some work done on the feasibility of having it be lit. They're LED lights. The power would come. There is a power there was power available in what some people call the bell tower, and some people call the powerhouse at the top of the falls. There is availability of power there, and it would come in through a PGE billing. So I'm not exactly sure what the total cost on that would be. I would assume, I don't know. It may depend on the actual lighting that we select. Do you have an estimate on that, John?
No, I don't, but it's going to vary. I mean, depending on what we can end up with. So, but we're talking LED lights. So everybody I've talked to says it's a 110 service. It's going to be low, low demand. We've also looked at there's a potential for even some solar options, but the solar options weren't included in the estimate. So it's another component that as we see funding come forth, I think.
Do you have to be at the mic?
Probably.
Probably so. Probably. Could you come, John, and summarize what you're saying? I think it's important we get this.
I think it needs to be on the mic.
You're
You want me
right.
to just change these numbers for you guys around here? See, what do we need?
Nice try, John. That's an old one. Yeah.
So, let's see. The question was about cost of the power to power these over time, and obviously there's going to be some cost, but I think there's the fact that we're proposing to use LED lighting. So and the service that we're providing is a 110 service. My suspicion is it's going to be fairly low. We're also, what's not included in this price, but is something that's come up as an idea, would be an alternate power source. And there's obviously solar is one option. It would be really cool if there was a way to generate power off the falls themselves to do that. But we haven't delved into that, right? That's not in this estimate. It may be very cost effective though, so we'd like to pursue that. But at this point, we're definitely concept level, and if we had to pay PGE power for this, my suspicion is it's not going to be significantly more than say 5 streetlights or something like that.
Thank you.
Any more questions of the Rotary Club Foundation request? Yes.
They're color lights. I'm assuming they're changeable. I mean, I'm assuming it's not just one color or multicolors, but I would envision a string of lights that then change to whatever color you want them to be.
What we're looking at is programmable.
Right.
So there can be seasonal colors.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, the numbers, I think there's a palette of like 640 different lights or something. It's pretty
So when we're discussing about cutting 1,000 or whatever we end up with, this project has to happen at some point, and I'm so excited about it. So I hope you get full funding either from us or from Metro Enhancement or from somewhere, but I definitely think this is an incredible project, and it's one I've been wishing to see happen for a long time. I remember a long time ago seeing the lights that way, and it'd be nice to have it back.
And then
I'd like to
go ahead.
Sorry, I'd like to comment if I could on
Sure.
as a plant engineer. I'd like to comment on the electricity, and I would like to agree with you. I think that it will be just the cost of a couple of street lights with LED lighting, depending upon how much you put in, because they're typically run only about 15 to 20% of a standard light.
And I guess, the question about the tourism attraction there, you got so many links. It's directly below the McLaughlin House, Barclay House area. It's right adjacent to the stairway, which was WPA vintage things, right adjacent to our elevators. So it's kind of a part of a piece that would, I think, benefit the whole area. And so I would like to see if we can work it out so we get full funding of the project too. But if we're not able to, surely encourage you to the difference at least to perhaps apply to the McLaughlin Memorial Association. No, we don't have.
Yeah, they have tons of money.
We'll go knocking door to door, right? Thank you.
The Neely household for the remaining grant.
Yeah.
Well, the Neely household's contributing to something else in this group.
Maybe there's a if there is a compromise on that, maybe the compromise could be at those Parks and Rec events. Let's say the concerts in the park and the movie. We could have a pass the hat for the lighting
That's right.
project.
Right. Actually, I have a couple of questions for I'm going to hold off for public comment until we get these things out. I know, unless it's specific to electricity?
He's part of it.
Specific to the project, I think.
Okay. I'd like to hold off in public comment until we've had an overall dialogue about the different projects, and then I'd be happy to take some. But unless somebody feels
He's
that
a part
we
of the.
bring-
He's
yeah.
a part. He's on the application.
He's
Oh, he's on the
qualified
application?
as Marcia, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then then that's different. If you're a part of this proposal, come on ahead, Dan.
I don't know. Qualifications. That's a subject I'm not going to get into. But one, I wanted to explain a little bit about how these things work, because I think it's important that you understand what we're talking about is a pair of focus lights focused on the front face of each fall as it steps up. They're individually programmable, so you could literally split the colors of each fall. You can make them
Or
dance up
different
and down.
layers, yeah.
You can make them red and green and blue, or there's literally a million different patterns that you can create. Once John and his folks understand the programming of these things, it's very easy to do. They're going to have the connection between probably at least at City Hall to be able to do that remotely without having to go down to the falls and plug into the thing. So there's a lot of really interesting things that you
Will
can do.
city
with that.
commissioners have access to that?
Darn it! It's been my experience of allowing city commissioners to do anything, and I include myself in that.
Well, I'm glad you said city commissioners as opposed to members of the city commission.
The other thing I do want to say is I think, and not to contradict Marcia, but I believe in all of the numbers that we've crunched and the things that we do. I think there is some room to, if the Oregon City Parks and Rec thing is important to the entire thing, I believe that we have the room in this funding to be able to get it done with that subtraction. One, we haven't gotten, I don't believe we've gotten all of the donations that are possible to get yet. There are some wire and conduit and things that we have pricing for that I believe that we still have the opportunity to get from some of the electrical contractors around the area. I also think that Mr. Lewis has overestimated the cost of the electrical service that we're going to have that may or may not have to be placed in the pump house. I'm pretty certain that we already have the service that we need there. So I think there's some dollars there that aren't really necessary that are in the project. So I would say it's just in my personal estimation that there's probably enough room there for you to do the OC Parks and Rec thing and still allow us to get the project done. And if we came short $1,000 or so, I think we could go to Metro Enhancement and get that.
Okay.
So I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but
Too late.
But you just did.
We talked about this on Saturday.
Unified presentation.
well, no, I know,
Just
but
through Metro,
at the same
Marshall.
time, I wouldn't want to cut out somebody else if we have some space in there, and I really do think, especially on what John Lewis told us that it was going to cost to get the electrical over there. I think he has a boilerplate number that he throws at everybody.
Yeah.
Would you say that that's the case, Mr. Lewis?
You don't have to speak into the mic.
You probably better go back.
Yeah, I'll go
Are there any more questions?
William has one.
William.
Two comments, one pro, one con, just to get this balanced. On the con side first is that the talk of tourism and the central locality and a piece of the puzzle and all that stuff. I think if you're looking from a tourist perspective, you also have to remember that this is really only going to be particularly effective at night. I mean, they'll be possibly visible during the day, but from dusk till the bars close, I'm just thinking that's not but I guess perhaps all tourist attractions have a limited window of usability.
May I address that?
Nope. Second,
May I address
the chair, after he's finished, the chair will allow you to address that. You're welcome.
on the positive side, I want to say that this is the type of a project that I like to see for grants, specifically because it's not really a pilot project. It's not going to be coming back for continual funding. Hopefully, that
Yep.
this is something that once it's done and done, and I like that very much about the project. So that's on the positive side.
I would agree.
Do you wish to respond to the first statement about
not-
whether
I
something-
would. I would
No,
like to.
if she wishes to, she will.
When you think about when is the most quiet time in downtown Oregon City, it's at night. And if we want to attract people to come down and frequent in the dark, and during civilized hours,
Well, wait a minute.
lights
Don't
would be-
go into definition of what you mean by civilized place.
Anyway, so it's a further enhancement for evening hours.
I would agree. Yeah.
It's welcoming.
It's very nice.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may. As a fairly recent resident, 8 years, I have never had the opportunity to see the falls lighted. And you'd mentioned, I think, alluded to vandalism in the past. So I assume that there is something in place that is no longer worth saving. So, if you could explain that to me a little bit, but also explain how the new one is going to be. I think you also brought up the subject, talked about how it wouldn't be susceptible to vandalism, and if you could expand on that.
I too am relatively a recent here, although I am married to someone who was born and raised here and has seen the lights, has seen the light.
David saw the light. David saw the light.
Right after you explained it to him.
And as a consequence of him seeing the light, he decided to retire a year early.
He knows his stuff. I'm not sure exactly what the vandalism was. The lights shone through some wheel that turned, and so I think that John can probably address some of those stories of vandalism. But I think that one cost that was not incorporated into the proposal, the grant request, was if we need to encase the lights, if they are external, if we need to encase them in rock or concrete or facing similar to the fall so that it fits in with the structure of the WPA work. That cost has not been incorporated into this. So if there is some cost savings on one side, it might be picked up on another to avert.
So the
potential
Technicolor scheme is historical? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So yes, this is your chance then to say why Mr. Holliday's comments may go one direction, but there are other things that may go the other direction. Is that correct?
I did.
Yes, okay.
Good job, Marcia. I love it.
Did you want to comment more on vandalism?
Well, I can.
whatever.
I think you covered it pretty well. There's some questions about how we protect these things or hide these things or screen these things so they're not so desirable or obvious. We also don't want them glaring into, we want to watch the glare or the angle of positioning of the light, so there's some concerns there. And what we've heard from our planning department is we do need to get through the historic review board on here, so we don't exactly know what's coming out of that. So, yeah, there may be a little bit of, and I don't want to cut any projects out either, so I'm just sharing with you my thoughts about this particular project. You'll make your own decision there. But there's one other thing I wanted to make, one other plug. April 21st is Earth Day, Oregon City Cleanup Day, and the Singer Hills area is a site that wasn't published, but we're planning to have an event. And so if you're interested in pulling ivy, kind of pulling weeds, we're going to have some plants down there for more planting along that hillside. Please join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What day was that?
It's April 21st. I think the request is that you show up at the Clackamas River Park at 8:30 and register, and then the cleanup happens from 9 to noon.
there's lunch provided after.
It's a joint city solve
That's right. It's a joint project. There's several sites. This is just one of them, and it happens to be one that I think needs volunteers.
That's
Very
great.
good. Thank you. I'm going to ask Rochelle to come forward, especially since if I heard Public Works correctly, that we should be able to find funding in the city for it. I presume he's willing to donate Public Works funding over to the Parks and Recreation Program to do that. Now, my question was actually going to be more serious. You indicate here matching funds of $875. Now, you indicated BCT has made a cut. Is this it, or is it something else?
Yeah, actually, the sponsorship the movie that you're sponsoring for the...
Oh, okay, well, we'll leave that out. Anyway, what I was going to ask was this. We have a request for $4,125. That's not the request, that's the total amount. Last year, you were able, through your own program funding, fund 2 movies. Is it fair to say that the funding of 2 movies is perhaps more than half of the cost of the $2,125? What my question is, if you were able to come up with funds last year
For 2.
It would seem to me that we should be able to come up with the matching funds for the equivalent of 2 movies. And that's a roundabout way of saying that, but...
And yeah, that's a good perspective. And what we could do too is like what we did last year is give and take from different budget sources or different programs, different special events.
Well, John's got some money for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed to me John was suggesting that we should be able to come up with monies in the city. So and he's not in your department. So
We have it on tape,
we have it on tape.
Careful what you say. You have to say it's what they hear.
We are politicians up here. That's what we hear.
And that's,
Speak for yourself.
that's what we did last year too. Is it's such a shoestring of a budget that we run on for the special events that we become really creative as far as where we spend and what type of things like that.
I'm going to suggest as a starting point that we seek for the grant for OC. It's the lowest on the priority list. Seek for the funding for OC Parks and Recreation. Our contribution of $2,000. It's roughly half the amount. They have some other funding coming in. And they pieced together money for last year. Then I presume they could piece the money together for the equivalent of 2 movies out of the 4 for this year. So I'm going to recommend that we put the amount of the request for OC Parks and Recreation and fund it at $2,000, and then look at the other projects from that standpoint to see what we could cut to bring it up to the total amount available of the $52,000. Is that all right?
Can we make it $2,250? Just to knock 1,000 off to keep it round.
I said $2,250 to them, to Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I don't feel very strongly one way or another about it, but it's roughly.
Give them 2,000 instead of the 3,200.
And I suggest we give them 2,250. That's not a big deal.
I'm good with the 2,000.
Just
The amount that any amount would help. So I mean, if that's
right.
if that was
the basis of the 2,000 was there is additional money coming in, and I don't know there was additional money coming in last year from other sources. I mean,
It was not last year.
So I don't know that I think 2,000 is okay. I mean, they probably put in at least that much last year. So, is that all right with everybody?
Is that doable?
Oh,
Any opposition?
I'm still leaning more, I did some other figures here, and if we cut across the board at 8%
I love it, Kathy.
per project,
I love it.
Per project. Oh, good.
that would more evenly distribute it. So like the Praxis would be $148. The OC Rotary Club would be somewhere around $1,600.
And we'll let Rochelle figure out the cents if we do it that way. I got no objection to that. Is that
I don't
okay with
either,
everybody?
actually.
Sounds fair.
So I guess, what would we end up with?
Well, she's just saying, let
Yeah,
us-
but if we.
That
cut
would
it
take
just-
the entire difference.
yeah, what she's doing is, the motion, I think, you probably did it correctly, is the motion is to reduce by a percentage amount every one of them to come up with the total of $52,000.
Right, the difference
And you can
between
put that
them.
motion forward, and we can let David Wimmer,
Do we want the rest of the? Wait a minute.
no, I understand that. But you-
But wait a minute. Do we want to hear from the other people that we're cutting?
I doubt if 8% kills anybody.
Okay.
Hmm?
Are you talking about
8%.
everything?
Everything.
I think that everyone should have a chance to maybe.
Okay, we'll start with Oregon City Chamber of Commerce representative. Are you here?
So if we take 8% off of 7,000, Michelle, what would that look like?
David, he has a
Oh,
calculator.
David?
560 for us.
You have anything to say?
Actually, I disagree with Kathy's math. It's 7.5. It's not 8. Oh, I've been back to doing
But the motion that we were putting forward, I think, does that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so-
all in my head right now. So.
Yeah.
So
it actually
David,
came
what
out to
does that bring us
7.5
down
because
to?
I was doing the same math.
6,440. I know.
So in spite of William's earlier comment, no, we do not pad. The chamber actually each year has reduced their request.
Right.
And
Except from this last year to this year, it's the
It
same.
was 7,000 last year.
It was
so it's the
7,000
same.
last year. Yeah.
we got 7,000 last year. We asked for more.
Oh, well, okay, that's true.
All right, so we're
Right.
coming down slowly, and unfortunately, in this economy, we're still having problems with sponsorships, which
Right.
could make up part of the difference. However, I agree with the movies in the park are marvelous and fantastic, and we come into this knowing that the requests are going to exceed the available funds. And be it 7.5 or 8%, we can live with the reduction.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Main Street, Oregon City,
35 times 0.92, if it's 8%.
So it brings you down.
Hi, my
to-
name is Elizabeth, and I'm with
Okay,
Main
right.
Street, Oregon City, and I am the producer of the First City Celebration. Do you want me to just talk about my event?
Yes.
What I think? Okay, so we have reduced our request from last year. Last year also, we did not get full funding. We are this will be the third year of the event, and really trying to create an event that attracts people to our city, that promotes businesses within our city, and also something that is very much working to be self-sustainable and trying to create the environment and kind of the type of event where the businesses within the Main Street and those most effective also see the value in it, therefore become the funders of the event. With that being said, this does take time. Anyone knows producing an event on this scale definitely takes time. And with everything else that's going on downtown, that is definitely what we're working for. I would, obviously we're going to appreciate anything that we get from the committee. We still want to make this event work. My thoughts and concerns kind of with across the board adjustments to everyone's is I don't understand what the system, like the ranking system is, then if we're just going to blankly across the board decrease everyone's funding. I feel like the ranking system is probably there for a reason, and it is to kind of decide which events promote the specifics of the grant the best. And, definitely when there is one request that is more than double anyone else's request, not to say that I don't think that it's a great event or a great thing, because I do. I really, again, I was somebody that grew up in this town and remembers when the falls were lit,
Right.
and think it's great. I think that it also, goes along with a lot of the missions of what people want to see downtown is a more lit, safer feeling, more friendly nighttime environment. So I definitely think that, that it's not a bad project, per se. But when there are maybe other things available but maybe fit the mission a little bit more, I would just ask that you think about why you have the ranking system in place and maybe where we could find funding for some of these other projects that we do want to see happen, but maybe fit the missions of other things a little bit better.
Right.
I think she actually, of course, she's speaking not to have hers reduced, but the fact is, we do go through this ranking system.
For a reason.
And so there is a reason for it. And I think the point is well taken. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Trick and Racy Car Club representative. She noted, and I will state that is a reduction from last year. I have here the last year's request was last year was granted $10,000, and this is not her request. This year's for Main Street, Oregon City, not her request, is for $9,275. So there was a reduction compared to what was given last year, and I think that's true also of Trick and Racy Car Club.
I believe so.
Yes, it is. I'm Mike Sims. I'm president of the Trick and Racy Cars, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. We, as you just said, we're asking this year for some $3,000 less than we received last year. The majority of the money that we spend goes for promotion, for advertising. We bring in cars with no problem. I do a lot of advertising at all the car shows, online at about 15 to 20 different online sites where we get free advertising. But we do some paid advertising in the newspapers and magazines here in the Northwest to bring people down. And we feel that we do a good job of bringing in people from outside Oregon City. If you've read my application for the grant, we have people from several states that come to our shows. And we put on 3 shows a year. The one at Clackamat Park is self-sustaining. This is the 25th year we've done that. Downtown is somewhat different. It's a new show, and it's more difficult to get spectators to come out for it. And the majority of the money that we're asking for goes for advertising and promotion. However, again, we're willing to, work with you and reduce our request by whatever is fair.
Improve the weather from last year. Spend some of that money on the weather.
Yeah, if we have a good sunshiny weather, well, I'll guarantee you 300 cars this year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I'm hoping for 5,000 spectators. We're adding additional activities to try to broaden the appeal. And it's a very family-oriented event. We have games for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
And, and we have some additional things we're adding this year.
Great.
And, again, we're willing to give up a portion of our request. We did not pad our request. I went through great details of what we spent last year to come up, and also with what we had left over from last year, to come up with this year's request. But again, we would agree to a reduction.
Thank you.
Michelle, I want just to check the figures because you made a quote that I may have got it wrong too. They received 2 grants last year for 2 separate events. They've combined them into a single one for both events. Could you double check what the total amount awarded last year was to them? I have here in my notes $9,400, and the request this time is for $7,500. So just a bit less than the 2,000. That is, so it's just a bit less than 2,000 reduction. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. That he is agreeing with it, so that's fine. Okay, and with that, the Clackamas Heritage Partners.
Gail Yazzolino, Clackamas Heritage Partners. We'd be happy with whatever. We'd make it work.
Be proud. $1. No.
Our visitors would be happy. We've been listening to them, and this all would be for in the visitor center. What this portion of the grant is for half of the total project, roughly half.
Yep.
It would be 1 computer, a desk, and do you have any questions?
Yeah, and I just to indicate what she was referring to there, their cash contribution is 5,600. I can't read whether I got 20 or 10 here, but in excess of $5,600, they're requesting $1,150. So you're requesting actually less than than your actual cash match.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I
Cash
think so.
and in-kind.
Then you have in-kind above that.
Yes,
Right.
yes, exactly.
Just to follow up on the one comment I made, that anything that happens at the wagons or anything that has to be coordinated with the city. And I think you
Right,
realize
right.
that.
Yes,
It's just that
yes.
there was some, I think, a greater specificity in your grant proposal for the wagons that I was comfortable with in the request.
That was different. That was different. That was the Lennox grant.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
This is
okay.
just this grant.
Oh,
and This
okay.
is
Right.
just for in
my
the visitor
misunderstanding.
center. And yeah, I've confused the whole city, I think. I sent out so many emails.
I'm easily confused.
And we've been busy down there.
In any case, there's a actual cash contribution that even exceeds a bit the requested.
It's a
amount.
matching grant.
Yeah.
That and then the in-kind.
Okay.
And I have a question.
Go ahead.
And this might be way too specific, but it's because of the same. And congratulations on
Yes.
the $81,000.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll be talking.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's really exciting. They received an $81,000 grant from the Lennox Foundation to expand some of their programming at the visitor site, and which is exciting. So I guess my question with this is, this grant's very specific to the visitor center and adding, furniture and work areas and that kind of thing. With the Lennox Foundation grant, if some of those components are actually, if some of those components that you're funding with the Lennox grant end up in the visitor center as opposed to the museum wagon buildings, then how do you essentially use the floor space that you have in the visitor center to accommodate this new addition of programming and what might have to happen with the Lennox Foundation? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think
So there are some logistics with that, but I don't have a I think this is a great grant, and
I think we can make this work.
Okay.
Because
So
there's
it's just a
computers and people come in. It's kind of a different. We have two sides. We make
Right.
things work. We'll
Okay.
have to see how it all pans out, I guess.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Praxis Institute, spokesperson there.
No dancing. Hello, I'm William Becker, and I'm the founder and president of Praxis Institute. And I think that we can certainly live with an 8% cut. A lot of that would come out of some of the marketing that we're trying to do to bring more people in, but we could still function. We could still put on the event.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
McLaughlin Memorial Association. Our comment is, she comes up here, there's been an increase in the request, but I've never figured out why they requested so little in the past.
Denise McGriff, I'm the treasurer for the McLaughlin Memorial Association, and as you can well imagine, I keep a tight eye on the dollars and the books. I'm very fiscally conservative, so I guess I can try to answer your question, Doug, is that I think that the reason that we have had what you might consider underfunded requests is because we are trying to be very conservative and use as much in-kind product and persons to do what we think we need to do. I will say that since we started with you in 2008, we've had an increase in visitors, and with the downturn in the economy, like other museums, we have had less visitation last year, but we had more events, and the people that attended the events really liked them, so we thought we would try it again. if you look at our request, the majority of the funding is to produce a brochure. We've been getting requests for the last 5 years, 6 years. We don't have anything for people to take away. So a couple of us have been working very hard with a graphic designer to come up with what I would call sufficient information, but not an expensive document, something that would not be dated. As I am aware of some other things that we have done, not we, but we as the city have done, then they become dated very quickly. We want it to be very user-friendly, and the example that we'd like to use is the similar outline to the brochure that the Park Service uses, and that is, there's information, but it's not dated. It's not specific to a time frame in terms of when they're open. So this could be very general, and that's really why the request increased. I've solicited 4 bids from different printers. Of course, I prefer to buy local, and the low bid did come from a local vendor. It's still reasonable. I think the other place that I might be able to cut is by adding a little more, using myself as an example, spending a little more time up there. Minimum wage did go, we only pay minimum wage, and minimum wage did go up this last year. It's not a substantial amount, but when you start adding in all the taxes and the payroll and the Social Security, that little tiny increase adds more. And so I will look at adjusting for a person rather than a paid person, as opposed to having an unpaid person like myself be there instead. We did get a request this year to split the half-time to a quarter time so that 2 people don't have to, one person doesn't have to spend every Saturday, every summer there. And that seemed like a reasonable request because one of the people would like to go on vacation.
Right.
And has not been on a vacation for 2 years. So we agreed to that. So there'll be a little bit more payroll cost because we're splitting the half-time position into 2 quarter positions, and the federal government doesn't recognize that in terms of what they take out for payroll. So we can adjust. As you are aware, somehow we've managed to underspend every grant we've had. So we've given back some money, or we didn't actually get the money, but we received money, but we didn't spend it all.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh,
Sir.
Is the brochure for the Rose Museum itself, or all 3 sets?
It's only for the Rose Farm.
Okay.
It's only for the William, let's call it by its proper name, the William L.
I
Holmes
got it,
House.
yes.
National Register Property, 1848.
Thank you.
Okay. And then we've already heard from the Rotary Club and Oregon City Parks and Recreation. I would have to say, I think Elizabeth Auer raises a good point. We go through this ranking process, and if we're simply going to make the decision that we're going to just simply reduce the amount, and I realize we don't have that much of a difference between the requests and so forth, but it maybe makes it too easy on us to do something like that.
I have an alternate suggestion.
No, I'm listening. We're listening, excuse me, I think.
Of all of these requests that we have, the bottom 2, that is the Rotary Club and the movies in the park, seem to have the most wiggle room in the fact that Parks and Rec might be able to find another way, and they've admitted that they might be able to find another way of balancing, between other funds. And the Rotary Club has another opportunity of going to Metro. So if the difference is 42.45, and
it is 42.45, is that correct?
That's what I came up with.
Okay, all right. I messed up to begin with.
And if you split that between those bottom 2, and you take off $21.22.50 off of each one of those, it's a big percentage for Parks and Recs, small percentage for Rotary, but we would have enough to fund everybody.
so if you take,
So take $2,000 off of Rotary and $2,000 off of Parks and Rec, and we're almost there. Just a suggestion.
Yeah. And in addition to that comment, I would say those are the only 2 essentially city projects.
Good point. Good point. So that's where I would rather go than taking a blanket percentage off of each of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can
Say that. Here.
we go ahead and put that.
I agree.
You want to go ahead and put that forward as a formal motion?
I would make that as a motion.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second?
What's your
Well,
motion?
I might second it, but are we taking comments from, or not?
I'll second it for discussion.
I don't want to have Dan and Marcia come in with another argument from the same group as to whether it's enough or not.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. And so we have a motion and a second. Now we can discuss the motion. It sounds like a fairly reasonable one. The point is that it's we have a carryover $245 that we do that. It's all right too. Anyway, it is the case then of course the members of the people that have been involved, I should say, in the foundation presentation are getting together and agreeing with themselves of how much the project cost, and if they want to, they can make a submission to the Metro Enhancement. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything. It's a different committee. There are some members, I think more than half the members are common to both of them, but the fact is there will be different people on the committee as well, and we should be looking at the Metro Enhancement independently of our decisions here. But, I mean, it is an option that's available should the Rotary Club Foundation choose to go that direction. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so, William, the motion is that we're going to make Rotary 18?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to make Parks 1250?
That's right.
Can we make Rotary 17 and make Parks 2250?
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Is a second accepted?
Yes.
Well, she made it.
I made it.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, that's true. Anyway, I just wanted clarification.
Of course.
Well,
Yes.
Anyway, is there one? So the motion is 1,700. We change the Rotary to 17,000, and we change Parks and Recs to then 2,000. What?
$2,250.
2,250. Yes.
We're still short.
Are we still short, David?
The difference is $22.45. If we've only taken $4,000 off, then we're short $245.
So we got to take the 250 off?
No, we have excess. That's an excess balance going into the next year.
Yeah.
That's $245 that has not been appropriated.
Is that correct, David?
Well, actually, in the budget, right now, the proposed budget has 45,000, so we're going to have to bump it up to 7,000 or whatever.
So, Michelle, can you do the
Why don't you put those?
spreadsheet?
Why don't you put those two numbers in, and then
I'll
there's
start at the top with full funding.
Yes.
yeah.
Bear with me. You want to sing? Rocky?
It's more fun to watch.
Oh, that's a little too much. Although Denise might be happy with that.
And then 2250.
2250.
Yes.
Enter. Puts us at 52,245.
Okay, you're right. It's 245.
And we only have 45. 40, no,
No,
we
we
have...
have 52. and,
We
yes.
have 52.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if we should agonize with 245 coming in from the money that's coming in from next year. I mean,
Yes.
what we didn't want is thousands of dollars.
Right, yeah. Left over.
But having $445 coming in from the next year's hotel tax, I don't think is any reason for
we
concern.
just hope it's a good tourism year.
That's right.
Yes.
Should be
Lots
with
of
these
people-
projects.
These projects, we're hoping for more. Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
We had a couple of people talked about their projects, their money going mostly for marketing. perhaps we could look at those folks for the remaining 245.
Yeah.
I don't even think we
Or
need to worry
two-
about the 245.
Yeah.
We can get that in next year.
Okay. We can pick that up in the first month of the next fiscal year. With that, shall we take the vote?
Yes.
Do we need a motion?
You made the motion, and he's put it in.
Okay.
Yes, go, Lynn.
So review the motion. There was an original motion by William, a second by Betty, for 2,000 from both the Oregon City Rotary Club Foundation and the Oregon City Parks and Recreation. Then there was an amendment to the motion to change Oregon City Rotary to 17,000 and Oregon City Parks and Rec to 2,250.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the wrong row. Yes, very
And
good.
then, given those changes,
Yep.
I inputted the award, tentative awards. We are at $52,245 for full funding
Right.
for the grants for
William,
2012-13.
go ahead.
I would just like to say that I guess this is where political pragmatism meets philosophy. And
Are you a pragmatist or a philosopher?
right now I'm a little stuck in the middle, so to speak. No, I guess my comment is that I cannot support the motion, and it's philosophical rather than pragmatism. Because I think over the years we have seen many times the grant money being invested in events that brought a lot of folks to the city one day and they disappeared. Now, that boosts tourism. I'm not saying that
Right.
fact at all.
Right.
And here are two programs that are being reduced because they have alternate funding, and I can pragmatically understand that, or could apply for it, that build a trickle of repeat visitors and potentially spread them out over a broader period of time. And one may be 4 movies, the other may be lighting of the falls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when Lynn and I host individuals, many of them from Independence, Missouri, we spend time roaming over and around those falls. And every time a visitor comes into Oregon City to see the lighted falls, or they maybe buy an extra meal, and that cumulative trickle effect builds the dollars you need to continue the effort. And so, like I say, I'm just voicing philosophy now rather than pragmatism. But I would like the folks with the Rotary Club and the OC Parks and Recreation to know that I do not favor the cuts to their program and will vote against the cuts to do so.
With that, I think we're ready for a vote, unless somebody else has some additional words. So, Michelle, I'll leave it into your capable hands of recording our votes.
Okay.
Because we're apparently not going to have all ayes, so we need to record the individual votes.
Okay, Commissioner Roth.
No.
Commissioner Pauley.
Yes.
Mr. Gifford.
Yes.
Commissioner Mum.
Aye.
Sorry, I'm writing this down as I go, so I don't have a special sheet.
It's all right.
Mr. Moore.
No.
Who have I missed? Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
And Mr. Best.
Oh.
Get Jamie.
Mr. McKinley.
Yes.
So that leaves Mayor Neely.
Yes.
So we have 6 yeses, and 3 noes.
3 noes, right?
Motion passes.
Thank you very much for the vote. I think we have a couple more agenda items on. I got to go in the front to find out what they are.
right.
All right. We discussed it, and, well, actually, we have, so all we have to do is, we did discuss and review the grants and determine the grant award allocations. The only thing we need to talk about at this point is the next meeting dates and time. Let me ask before we do that, is there anything in our procedures that you would like to look at that's different than what we've done? If there are, we probably should schedule a special meeting to discuss procedural aspects of our process, and I have Commissioner Smith there with his hand up.
Without going into great detail, one of the things, I think was it 2 years ago we revised this a little bit, or?
Revise the application?
Yeah. One of the things that I still find a bit confusing with the ranking process, because I agree that, and I've been very vocal in the past about having ranking processes that don't really make sense and just kind of at random making decisions. But I'm trying to find when you have this you have this ranking scale from 1 to 5. And really, in terms of the ranking, we're basing the ranking on 4 criteria at the bottom that we're giving scores to. So we're giving a ranking of 5 to 4 different things. We all have our own way of figuring out how that ranking is going to go. And in the past, what I have done is give every one of those 1 through 4 things 1 point, and 2 points possible for the tourism component of it, bringing people in, because I feel that there should be a strong connection to the tourism money.
Right.
So that's how I personally do it. But that is something that everyone else does differently. I guess the problem I'm having is, the bullet points up above. The bullet points up above are equally valid, but yet don't come into any aspect of our ranking. And so I'm curious as to why or I guess a topic to maybe discuss would be, why aren't we ranking these maybe 1 through 10, and all of those components are pieces of it? I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that these upper bullet points should really be part of the ranking too. And I don't know how to necessarily do that. But I find it hard to, at the end of ranking them based on these 4 criteria and looking at the number, and then the number in my mind doesn't really set with how I feel about the overall project. And it's very confusing. And I think that's part of the reason we get into this move a little bit here to try to help everybody, because we see that they're all valuable projects, and we all have our different ways of seeing them. So I don't know how to fix it, but I'd like to at least have a discussion about if we could address that in the future. I don't know.
Rocky, I agree with you, and I have a couple ideas about that.
Okay.
And I've got a different philosophy, but what that means is we should have a meeting to discuss it.
Right.
And I think that's fine.
I think that's
And with that, we're probably going to meet. I would suggest maybe not during the summer months.
Right.
I second that.
So either
The last
with
time
the
we
next,
did a joint work session between Metro and OCCIT, we did it in like October.
and that gives us enough time.
Yeah.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, before submissions and so forth. So
Maybe September.
September.
For personal reasons.
That's fine. September, a month of September is okay. And rather than trying to maybe fix a specific date, maybe you could put some alternatives there and poll us all as to what would be a good set of dates.
As far as, and this goes along with the meeting date as well, obviously for this meeting, spring break plays a piece, but I also try and get it on a 5th week.
Yes.
Since there's
City
typically
Commission and
week
all
1
that.
through
Yeah.
4 are several meetings for everybody.
That's
But
a week I hope that I don't have any meetings at all.
Well, I can load
No,
1 through 4, and
That's
I totally get it.
that's totally fine.
So I'll look at dates for both September and October. I will also wait to see in May, if there's any things going forth, if we need
Yeah,
to do a joint
Metro
work
enhancement, yeah.
session with
Right.
Metro
Yeah,
Enhancement.
that's a good idea.
And do it that way.
Okay, great.
Michelle, may I suggest you take a look at a piece of free software, I think it's free, called Meeting Wizard, where you lay out possible dates, you send it out to everybody, and they can say what times they are
And you
available or
might,
not.
Metro uses such a tool, and maybe we don't have to pay for it. Maybe there's some way we can
I think
piggyback.
Meeting Wizard might be free.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So, and for that, what I'll do is plan on bringing the original trust, we'll review the trust organizational papers, because that's where a lot of that goes
Yeah.
to.
Mm-hmm.
And the ranking form,
Mm-hmm.
which are obviously the two pieces. If there's anything else, please let me know.
Okay.
Is there anything else? And could we accept that you'll probably look for the fifth week for scheduling of this next meeting, that where we're actually doing the voting and so forth?
For this meeting, yes.
Yeah. And does
Yeah.
this day of
Well-
the week work for everybody?
Let me look.
As far as you know at this point, I mean, I
At
realize.
this point.
I realize
I
things
know
could
your
change.
future.
Yeah. So.
I was going to peek at March next year. If there's nothing else as far as work session items at this point.
Okay.
March, it doesn't look like, it's a four-week month. March 25th being the Monday of the last week, which would be typically spring break. So we would be looking at probably either before spring break or the first week of April for this meeting.
So what's your preference, before or after spring break?
Probably after, do you think? So you have a week to
Everyone's looking at me.
Well, you know, I mean.
You got the school thing.
I may not be here.
Well, that is a point, but you might want to apply to be on this board. You may not be on the city commission.
There's a lot of things between now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But as long as it.
So I'd be looking either the week of the March 18th, the first part of the week, to
Yeah.
avoid any possible travel, or the week of April 1st.
Yeah, my personal preference, because my personal preference is to actually have it the week after spring break.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at April
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
which is similar to this. So
Yeah.
with that, that leaves an adjournment at 7:12, and William's not even here to hear me say that.
Note that in the minutes, please.
Yes, William has a comment before I adjourn.
Wendell.
Wendell.
Very
Sorry,
quick.
William. Well, William's not there. No wonder I was confused.
Very quick, thank you. I just would like to take this opportunity, since probably this is my last meeting with this group. I would like to take the opportunity to thank the mayor and council for the ability to serve the citizens of Oregon City over the last years. Thank you much.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Well, we appreciate your critical input, too. Thank you very much. Are we losing anybody else at this meeting?
No.
Yeah, well, it's possible. But as far as we know, are
As
there-
far as citizen committee members, no.
Okay.
All right.
We'll adjourn it. Thank you very much for all of you staying around and talking about your projects. I appreciate it.
Thank you.